All right, let's kick it off. So hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on automating your year-end review workflows. So as we enter into this last quarter of the year, it's time to start thinking about your year-end review workflows. And in today's workshop, we will go over exactly how to set up and automate your year-end reviews workflows so that you're not only prepared in the coming months, but for the years to follow. So you can set it and forget it. So today what we're going to go over is a quick speaker introductions. Then we're going to give you an overview of what you can automate. And then we're going to jump into the automations workshop, followed by a Q&A. Let's jump into the speaker introduction so you know who is giving this awesome workshop today. So with us today, we have workflow expert Olivia Law. Olivia brings her amazing energy to every Hubly training call, using her expertise to build and implement thousands of workflows and automations for our customers. Ron Gordetsky is the COO and co-founder, and he has worked hands-on with over 100 financial advisory firms and their support teams to help fully optimize Hubly to enhance their business. To date, both Ron and Olivia have helped advisors create over 100,000 customized workflows that manage over 145,000 client relationships. So Ron, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tessa. Welcome, everybody. Really excited to have you join us today. I'm going to start off by discussing kind of two main ways that we can automate and create automations in your hub. If you joined us in the last automation webinar, these are going to be familiar to you because we use both of them when automating your prospecting funnel. So on the next slide here, the first way is Zapier. So Hubly works with Zapier to allow you to create these triggers that can monitor everything from your mailing campaigns, your scheduling applications, all the way down to your email, and create these triggers to do actions in Hubly, as well as in the other software systems that you use. The idea here is whenever events happen that need to be rekeyed or data needs to be updated across your software, you want to use automation software like Zapier to eliminate that stop and go waiting that creates a lot of friction and prevents your work from flowing and people from being able to go and do the next steps in those workflows. The second big way to create automations is in Hubly itself. We've created an assortment of workflow rules that help you start clients proactively in workflows, start clients repeating across certain quarters or months across the year, and categorize clients and change those categories as they move through their relationship with you and your team. You're going to see both Zaps as well as workflow rules today in today's webinar, and Olivia's going to walk you through how to implement both to help move your clients more proactively and more smoothly through your year-end preparation workflows. So that's the topic of today's meeting, and we're going to start off with a quick overview of that year-end review workflow process that we recommend existing users adopt. And if you're just getting started with us, you can always talk with us through your implementation to help you build these out and include these automations to help the clients flow more freely through scheduling, preparation, the meeting topics, and the follow-up steps. Awesome. So this process really starts out in the scheduling workflow. This is where you can queue up your clients that you would like to schedule that next meeting with. If we click onto a client card, so for example, Coco over here, you can see exactly how far along you are on that scheduling workflow with each client. Olivia is going to show you how we can take the scheduling workflow and create some automations to help both trigger automated reminders to remind you to follow up on emails that you send, as well as to proactively add clients like Coco to these workflows when it's time to schedule the next meeting with them. Next up in your process is the preparation workflow. This is really going to be that list of tasks that you would like to do in preparation for every meeting. This typically involves updating client data across your systems, collecting missing documents, and following up on missed or outstanding follow-up steps from the previous meetings or other activities done between the meetings. Similar to the scheduling workflow, when you select a client like Joseph, you can see exactly what needs to get done and what's still outstanding. in preparation for this client's upcoming meeting. Each client has their own checklist, so you can always customize it and add these specific follow-up steps or preparation steps that are still outstanding for Joseph to be done before and to be completed by your team members before that next meeting. Once preparation is done, the next workflow in this process is your meeting topics. And this is a pretty simple one. If you select a client in this workflow, you can see a list of the different topics that you'd like to discuss. And we really recommend configuring this workflow accordingly so that you have a list of all the different topics that you might be wanting to cover in that year-end meeting. And you can proactively leave comments, notes, or just mark the tasks complete that represent the topics discussed in that meeting. This creates a bit of a paper trail for you and your team, so there's no question about what was discussed, when, and with which clients. The last and arguably most important step in this process is really that follow-up workflow. This is the workflow where you add a client into after they've completed that meeting, and it really is there to help you track both the tasks that you want to complete after a meeting, but most importantly, it lets you capture the follow-up items that come out of the meeting and delegate them over to your team. So if you click into a client in here, you can see those follow-up tasks, such as saving meeting notes to Hubly, as well as your CRM, and then also adding those follow-up tasks into that workflow, which again, if you use Hubly, and you probably already know this then, these workflows can be customized on a client-by-client basis. You just select the Add Task button, and you capture the follow-up tasks and outstanding items that you want yourself or your team to complete for the client after the meeting. Olivia is also going to cover this step, and we're really going to show you how to make all these workflows flow better together and pre-populate clients into them proactively, so that all you have to do is open up your dashboard and see where every client is at and what needs to get done. Awesome. Olivia is now going to share her screen and show you how you can utilize some of the automations that I covered in the overview earlier in Hubly in order to streamline your upcoming year-end reviews. Please feel free to ask your questions and follow along in your own hub. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat and we'll either answer them in real time or we'll come back to them at the Q&A section right after this demo. Olivia, over to you.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. Morning, afternoon. So today, as Ron said, we're going to be going through automating your year-end review process. Now, to begin, I do want to talk about leveraging workflow rules to queue up clients that you know you need to schedule a meeting with. Now, I think most of us, or most of you on this call, are already Hubly users. And so this bit of information is not going to be brand new. We know that you can add a client into any workflow via this Add Clients menu, and then you can type to search or just scroll through your list of clients to find the clients that you want to add in. However, that's easy to forget. It's easy to let clients slip through the cracks. It's easy to forget that you have to schedule meetings. So we are going to set up a repeating rule to ensure that no clients can slip through the cracks. To set up this rule, we'll need to do it in the templated workflow state. So I'm just going to double click on the workflow header there to open up in the workflow state. I'll come down here to automation rules and press add rule. Now I want to set up a repeating rule. That's just the default that popped up for me here. I'll press configure. Now, always, I just want to make sure that I'm going into active clients here, just to make sure that all of my clients who I've categorized previously as active are going to be pulled into this workflow. Now, because we're talking year-end reviews here, I feel like actually tomorrow, October 1st, is a really good day to get the ball rolling on that, because Q4 is about to begin. So I've set up this rule to add in all my active clients every 1 year, starting on October the 1st, 2021. We can add that rule in, and then following up from this, it's going to happen in 2022, 2023, as long as you keep going. From here, just staying in this workflow for a moment, I really want to make these scheduling tasks a little bit smarter so that you or anybody on your team can really quickly work with any client to get a call in the books. So First of all, we can create email templates for these clients. I've already set them up so that you don't have to sit here watching me type. But really, really simple year-end review email template there that, as you know, you can just import into your email software and send that out to each client. I've also added into my task description my Calendly link. One really great thing to be able to do is actually, if you have more than one advisor in your team or more than one person that your clients are going to be scheduling these reviews with, you can add multiple links into this task description so that all the information that you need is right there on hand. Now, I really want to add in a sequential reminder. This is just going to remind me to follow up if I don't hear back from the client after I sent that first email notification. So to set that up, again, really, really simple. The little alarm bell is where we set up reminders. I'll click into that. And because I want it to be triggered based on when I send the first email, I'll set this up so that when the preceding task is completed, 1 week later at midday, I'm going to get notified that it's time to follow up. You can also, as soon as you've sent that follow-up email, I like to set up another reminder just to make sure to update my meeting date in the client card, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. Last but not least, I do think it's also important to add an email reminder onto this follow-up task so that anybody who is supporting you, whether it's yourself, another advisor, or any kind of support staff on your team, they're able to send the email exactly as you want it to be sent. Now that our scheduling workflow is ready, it is really easy to utilize Hubly with scheduling apps, such as Calendly, to streamline your meeting scheduling procedures. So, as we just saw, we rely on this client review scheduling workflow to keep track of the clients that we're going to be reaching out to for the year-end reviews. I really recommend using a calendaring software such as Calendly. You might use Schedule Once, you might use Acuity, just to help you streamline the logistics of this process. I've already set up a Calendly event for my year-end review process just to show you. So today, I'm going to be showing you how to connect your Calendly or other software to Hubly through Zapier. So we'll be working through this step by step. I know it looks like a lot of steps, but I promise you it's really simple and it's going to save you so much time in the future. So as always, every single Zapier process has to start off by creating a trigger. So to open up this trigger, we're going to start off by selecting the app and the triggering event. In this case, your app is going to be Calendly or Schedule Once or whatever your scheduling software is. And the triggering event is when the meeting is created. Here they call it invitee created. As soon as you've logged into your account, this step is complete. We've got the client information and we've got the Calendly login. Next, we're going to set up a filter step. If you're anything like me or most of the teams that I work with throughout the Hubly onboarding process, you have a lot of different meeting types. We're going to configure this step to only continue for our review meetings. So you can see here, I've pulled in the event name type from Calendly that was picked up in step 1. And I'm just going to make sure that we've got review as my keyword there. That way, only events with that name, with that word in the name, are going to get pulled through in this particular Zap. Cool. Let's get into the actions. So the first action that we're going to be setting up is finding a client in Hubly. To do this, we'll add a new action. Your app or your app that you're going to use is Hubly, and the action event is find client. We set it up based on the email that has been used to schedule your event. As you know, whenever people are scheduling events, you need that email address so that you can connect it into Hubly, connect it into your CRM, and also get to send them out your Zoom links. I've pulled in this email address from the Calendly triggering event. All you have to do is just click into name or email, click into the drop down, and then find invitee email right here. Now that we've found the client in Hubly, the next step is to save the date in Hubly. I'm going to show you right here where this meeting date is going to be saved, just so that we're all on the same page. So back in my hub, I can open up really any client card right here. We'll try Anthony. We can see in this top right corner of your client card, we've got that meeting dates little section. So we can see his last meeting date was in March. It's quite a while ago. And next meeting date, nothing scheduled yet. Awesome, because that's what we're currently in the process of doing. So again, for this next action, setting client date in Hubly, you'll choose your app and event. Your app is Hubly, that's where it's getting saved into. Your event is setting the client date. To set up your action, you've selected the hub. We're just going to go in and find the client ID. You can take that client ID, it's what you found in the previous step. So in your find client step, you'll click into the client field, drop down into find client, and show all options. That's going to pull up your client ID. Make sure it's client ID, not hub ID. Easy mistake to make. Now your client date type here is always going to be meeting. We know that because, again, back in Hubly on that top right corner of the screen, you had the meeting dates. My meeting date type for this, I kept it really, really simple with just review meeting. You can call it anything you like. One really important thing to remember is that when you head into this drop-down menu, if you do not see the meeting type that you're looking for, and you're like, this is weird because it does exist in Calendly, that might just be because you have not yet created it in Hubly. It's really easy to create in Hubly. You can just do that straight from your client card. Make sure that that's done before you go ahead and set up this app. The final step now in the same action is to actually set the date from your Calendly event. In this day, as we always say, you're looking for the date that looks like it's the ugliest and the most complicated. Like this one. You can see we've got event start time, and then we also have the pretty version. We don't want that. That's not going to pull through, make it look complicated. Right. Now, next up, this is one really awesome step that I'm really excited to show you today. So it's a delay step. So since hopefully I'm going to be scheduling a lot of my year-end reviews for my client calls at the beginning of the quarter, ideally beginning of October for me, I would much rather not have all my clients appear in my meeting workflows and just be sat there until their next meeting. So I'm going to set up this delay step to pause the Zap at this point until 1 week before that next scheduled meeting date with the client. Just like in every single step, we'll choose our app and event. The event is going to be delay until. To set up the action here, I found my event start time from step 1, invitee created in Calendly. We've got that ugly date right there. And then you can see, it's kind of small, but you can see I've typed in -1W. Now here, the minus is because you're delay until 1 week out from the event. The 1 is because it's 1 week. You could change that to 2 weeks or 3 weeks, any number. And then the W stands for week. By that same logic, you can also set it up to delay by day, or you can set it up to delay by like a month. So perhaps you could change this to maybe 3 days. And that's a nice way just to add your clients in when you need them to be there. Now that we have this set up, once a client has scheduled their next meeting, you're going to be able to see that that is updated in the client card, and you can mark this scheduling workflow to be complete. Finally, I've set up this final action in my Zap to assign a client to my workflow in Hubly. Just like before, we've chosen my app, which is Hubly. We've chosen my event, which is assigning the client to a workflow. And then we're going to set up the action here. I've selected my hub. I selected my client from step 3, finding your client in Hubly. And the next workflow that I want to add them into is client review preparation. And that concludes our work in Zapier today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Liv. That was super informative. We have one question that came in during that demo. It was from Caitlin asking us to explain a little bit more about Zapier, as she's never heard of it. So I can just give a quick explanation before we move on to the next phase there. So for those who haven't heard of Zapier or maybe are on the edge, haven't quite adopted it in their business yet, Zapier is really great for identifying and then automating away those repetitive, time-consuming data rekeying steps. Again, it can work by listening to events, or they call these triggers, that happen in one system. So, Liv, if you flip open the Zap again, the trigger in your case was when that Calendly event gets scheduled. So that's the link that Liv demonstrated she sends out whenever she's looking to schedule a meeting with a client. She sends them a link to her Calendly. Now, the client can take a couple minutes, or they can take a couple of weeks, or as some of you are probably familiar with, they can take a couple of months. But it doesn't matter how long of a delay between the time that they get that link and then they actually go in and they schedule their next check-in with you. Zapier's patient. It waits. And it's also always available. So it doesn't need to wait until the end of the day once it has some time to go and look at that newly scheduled event, update it in Hubly, take the client, add them to the preparation workflow 2 weeks out, etc. Zapier can do that in real time. So basically, once that event is scheduled, Zapier is listening for that. It springs into action. It goes and it looks at the filters, and it says, does that event match the criteria? So for example, if it's a prospect meeting, it filters it out and doesn't continue. Now, if it is the right meeting type, it'll keep going. And those are the awesome actions that Liv demonstrated that you can set up in Zapier to take action in Hubly. And if you just scroll down here, Liv, just a quick summary, it basically goes in, it takes the event, finds the client based on the email that the event's scheduled to, takes the date that they scheduled, saves it to Hubly so you don't have to rekey that manually, and then it waits on the client before adding them to the preparation workflow in Hubly and kicking off those steps for you. You can set up a Zap to do really anything that you want, but those things need to be very concise actions that they follow a 1, 2, 3, 4 order. And why I say that is because the most common issue that we run into, and we work with a lot of advisors and users who love to use Zapier, is they try to create Zaps that entail some sort of human logic that obviously a computer such as Zapier can't quite do right now. It's really great at just doing the work that you hate to do, the rekeying work, but it's not that awesome at going in and actually making decisions for you, such as which workflow to put a client into, or assigning tasks to specific team members. It can't do those things yet. Maybe one day. But for now, it can basically shave off all of those extra hours that you and your team spend waiting on each other to go through and actually rekey the data so somebody else can be unblocked to do the next task and do their work. So it's really awesome in doing things in real time. If anybody else has any other questions about Zapier, please do ask, or about really anything else you continue to hear here. And again, we'll either jump in between sections or we'll cover it at the end Q&A. Awesome, Liv, back over to you.
Sweet. Thank you, Ron. Okay. Wow, I even drank water in that little break. There we go. Okay. So now that as we've just gone over, now that clients are going to automatically be added into this client review preparation workflow, I forget how much I set the delay for. I think it was 5 days before their scheduled meeting date. We're going to move on to how we can use that meeting date to stay on track of the follow-up tasks after your meeting is complete. Now, really briefly, just before we head into follow-up, I know it sounds like I'm ignoring this client review meeting topics. That's just because I'm not a financial advisor and I don't think it's my place to tell you how to run your own meetings. But in between these steps, you'd hold your meeting, it will go really, really well, and you'll have a lot of follow-up steps to complete with your client after that. So it would be really ideal if after your meeting, your client was waiting for you in your client review follow-up workflow. I'm going to show you how to make sure that this happens using another smart automation rule. So just like before, I'm going to double click on the header to open the client review follow-up workflow. I'm going to add in an automation rule. This time it's actually going to be an important client date rule. So we'll just click the drop down, select important client date rule, and then press configure. Just like before, we'll make sure that we filter into just our active clients. And today I am going to set this so that our active clients get scheduled on the date of their review meeting. So this means when the review meeting is scheduled, Zapier adds the meeting date into the client card, and then my client review follow-up workflow sees that date, and on the date, it brings my client into my follow-up workflow. Now that that is set up, I just want to quickly go through the tasks that I've got in here because I feel like they're really, really solid meeting follow-up tasks, no matter what you've covered in the meeting. So we've got saving meeting notes to Hubly. You can always add those in just by attaching it. Really great place to make sure that everything is as it should be, and you've got a really sweet client service record there. Next, my task is add follow-up tasks and assign next workflows. Now, next workflows, you can pre-configure these, or you can just add them in the client card. Now, for example, these might be age specific. You might say like an RMDs or a QCDs if your client's at the right stage for that. Or they might be really situation based, such as like a real estate purchase or a sale. You can add these in if you know most clients are going to follow through via your templates right here. Or again, you can open up the client card and add in any next workflow that's going to need to be configured on the right-hand side of your client card. Going back into these tasks, just like in scheduling, I think it's really important and really, really handy to have an email template saved. So again, I'll just click into that. You've got that basic bare bones email template that's going to show up for every single client. Obviously, you'll add on with any homework or follow-up things that are specific to each and every client. And that's about it. Any client information that you need to update, you can get that updated, whether that's reviewing streams and tags, whether it's changing any addresses or account information. All the information is right here. So now just to review. Let's see if I can pull up an arrow here just to make sure that we are all looking in the same place. Okay, so clients are going to be added into this client review scheduling workflow on October the 1st, kicking off our scheduling tasks. Once their meeting is scheduled, that date is going to be saved into their client card, and the client will be added into their meeting preparation workflow 1 week out. That's via your Zapier automation that we set up a few minutes ago. You will manually move your client into your client review meeting workflow during their meeting. You'll conduct a killer end of year review meeting. And then once that's completed, you'll see your client show up in your client review follow-up workflow, prompting you to complete all of these follow-up steps. This is where you can capture new action items and schedule future workflows for topics that are identified in the meeting. And the really cool thing about this is that it's actually repeatable for all meeting types. So it's repeatable for sure for next year's end of year or year-end review meetings. But you can also use pretty much these same rules and these same automations to set up any kind of review meetings with your clients that you schedule on a regular basis. And yeah, I'm going to say that's about it from me.
Well, thank you so much, Olivia. That was super informative and super helpful. I really love when we get these kind of opportunities to summarize the best practices and the knowledge that we really learn by working with so many advisors day in and day out. And it really leads us to stop and think, what are the best practices that we see and how can we share these back with the community to help you, again, streamline how you work, but most importantly, use Hubly to ensure that things don't fall through the cracks. There are obviously a lot of things that we did not cover in that short demonstration, some of which include how you can actually leverage those individual tasks and assign them to specific team members. All of those things you can chat with us about if you're not a user yet. And we're going to show you how in a couple of seconds here. And if you are a user, you can always reach out to myself, to Olivia, to James through the chat inside of the app. To summarize, Hubly is really ideal for firms looking to stay on top of client needs. We can really focus on helping you with three main areas: proactively scheduling those next client meetings and keeping that list of clients that you're still waiting to schedule a meeting with. We all have those lists, and that way in Hubly, it always persists. So if some clients never respond, some clients don't need that meeting, you can still see them in that workflow. They don't disappear out of sight. The second is to really personalize that service to every client. Hubly really lets you take that experience and customize it on a client-by-client need. As you go through the preparation steps, you can add additional steps that you discover are missing, or maybe something is needed for the client before that next meeting. It's really easy to document that and create that paper trail to look back upon at the next year-end meeting or the next quarterly meeting to see what was covered last year and what was potentially missed. And last, I know we didn't really get into it that much today, but for those of you that work with a team, or if you even just work with one virtual assistant that's with you part-time, Hubly makes it really easy to plan out those steps that you want to take leading up to a meeting, as well as those steps you need to take after a meeting, and then delegate them to your team and monitor how far along each client is, as well as communicate inside of that client card in order to really document your own comments and notes about what you want them to do and what they discovered in doing the task. If you're not a Hubly user yet, we'd love to meet with you as well. There's a really easy way to schedule a free call. We call it a strategy call because we really take the time to understand the challenges that you face in your business and help figure out if Hubly is the right solution to help you meet those challenges and achieve your goals. You can book that strategy call at myhubly.com/strategy call.